you want to get going anyway, we're determined to finish by midday, so...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morena councillors, Tanakwe, Poro, Mike and Mike. My pleasure to present my, I think, about the 22nd and final annual report on health, for me, on human resources and health and safety. So as with previous years, maybe just a few quick highlights and then more than happy to answer any questions. Been an extremely busy year in terms of employment issues and appointments, as you will see from the numbers, taking on now total staff to 250 or just over 250 FTEs. Turnover was up slightly, or was up this year, not slightly, to 11.4, but still under the national average for local government, as reported in the Lawson Williams annual report. Just a review, as we do, of the exit interviews didn't indicate any real issues that were a trend, and certainly frustration and job dissatisfaction was a very low score in terms of those leaving. Average age is pretty self-explanatory. The numbers of females in supervisory positions has increased slightly again this year, which is a positive, but is still something that the council is focusing on in terms of its training. So in terms of health and safety, we did have the independent audit, which was done on an exception by exception basis. So they did acknowledge that there were a number of really positive aspects of our health and safety management and processes. But there were obviously things that we do need to improve, as one would expect, and we are moving on a number of fronts on those things to make sure that's happening. And that will include, we have just recently advertised for a senior health and safety advisor, so that will boost the resources in that area and ensure that a number of things in the implementation plan are carried out. So while there's been a rise in the number of reported incidents, as you'll see from my comments, the number of accidents has also increased, but the number of days off or injury or accidents requiring time off is actually reduced by half from the previous year. And my comments there, I do honestly believe that we've, through the awareness we've got of health and safety, that we have got a good culture of people willing to report things. And I think that's really essential. Driving things underground and not reporting is a dangerous way to have an organisation. So while we've increased the number of incidents, as you'll see, a lot of those relate to property damage and that sort of thing. Main focus on staff training has still been on leadership development. We have a number of managers undertaking a year-long management program, and we also have a specific leadership development intensive program for identified potential leaders in the organisation. And then the only other comment there was just that through the year we've done a significant review of remuneration processes and performance management. So, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to just take questions on the report.
Thanks for a very comprehensive report. Councillor Dick.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Viv, you just mentioned before that you've got a number of staff that are undergoing year-long management training. Is this extramurally? Is this out of house, or what form of training is that?
It's basically online. It's provided over the year, and so they have regular aspects that they look at. It commences with a survey to identify what are the shortcomings for those staff, and then the modules are appropriately discussed with them in terms of what they need to develop specifically. And then they also have one-on-one coaching via Skype or telephone every 6 weeks.
Is this Institute of Management?
No, it's actually an Australian company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and while I've got the floor, Mr. Chairman. Have you said this is probably your last report?
Correct, yeah.
I'd just like to say thank you, and I've enjoyed seeing you around the place for 12 years. I think you've done a good job.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Viv, page 37, the exit interviews and the reasons for leaving. Look, in talking with my nieces and nephews and my kids who are of a younger generation than I am, obviously, one of the things that strikes me is those that were born in the 90s or 80s or 90s, whatever, are a little bit more fluid in terms of prepared to change their employer to get advancement and take themselves up the ladder, whereas in my day you stayed with the same organisation and climbed as fast as you could. Would that be a fair comment about some of these people that you've had looking for reasons for the leaving, in terms of like the likes of level of salary and level of responsibility and so on? It's self-improvement for the person.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, Councillor Bailey. I think the younger generation are quite willing to move more readily. We don't do specific sort of research on how long people are staying at that lower end. Yeah, I think as a general comment, I think that's absolutely correct.
Do you think it's, sorry, Chair, do you think that's something we need to be cognizant of in the future, to be aware of that issue?
I think in terms of any workforce planning, you have to adjust in terms to what the makeup of the workforce is. And we've also got it perhaps at the other end of the spectrum is people in the retirement age. I'm particularly thinking of engineering, where nationally there's a very high proportion of people in their late 50s. So that's going to create workforce planning issues moving forward. So I think it's across the spectrum, both at the new age and later on in life as well.
Thank you,
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering how easy is it to report a near miss, or like, do we run a program like an app or something, or how would if I was a staff member and I'd backed into the chairman's car or something, how?
Truck, it wouldn't matter.
Wouldn't matter. Oh, that's
That would be a
fine.
direct hit.
Well, and then I decided I needed to report that. I mean, how would I go about that? How hard would that be?
We haven't got an app, and it's something I think that we could move to, so that people have got it on their phone and could access it quite easily. So we've got it electronically, but they invariably have to come into the office, or we may have it remotely at home to register it into our system. But it is electronically stored and recorded.
So are we getting the full range of what's happening? That's my guess, the underlying question.
Yeah, it is a very full report in terms of each one, so that we can, well, it's based on the WorkSafe form that they use, the investigation form.
So what do you describe as a near miss? See, near might be a lot different for Fenton than it is for me.
Correct. The one I always advise people in terms of driving, it's if you have a oh my God moment, that's probably a near miss, as against something a little bit less than that. So it does depend on the person, but
So you have to invoke the name of the deity you believe in. What is that to test?
yeah, possibly is.
Mr. Walker, and then I'll go to Councillor Bevan.
Kia
Got a-
ora, tō ngā mihi o Alan Dick ki a koe mō tō mahi ki wangi a tātou. Ka pai te haere o tō retirement, i rawa. So I just want to thank you because I was on the Māori committee back in the early 90s, and it's pity we never had a lot more people like you in the game. It's a pity that you're leaving.
Thank you.
My question to you is, what percentage of Māori employees do we have in this organisation?
I realised after I read the report again that I hadn't reported on that specifically. So you have caught me on the hop. What I would say is, in terms of workforce planning now, that will become a more clearly identified aspect of the workforce. But unfortunately, yeah, you have caught me on the hop in terms of actual numbers. But my gut feeling is that we have increased the number of Māori that we are employing.
Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Chair. Number 5 on page 33, exit interview information, reasons for leaving. You say that it's hoped that changes to salary processes and a new performance management process will assist with reducing these reasons. Can you just elaborate on that a little? What's the change proposed to the performance management process?
I don't know. CE would like to reply to that, or do you want me to?
So we've completely overhauled the remuneration and performance system for all staff, and what that involves now is a formal set of KPIs set at the start of the financial year between a staff member and the manager. A process through the year to monitor how the staff member is going, and then at the end of the year a grading process about whether or not the staff member has met expectations or exceeded expectations or fallen short of those, and that then flows through in a structured and formal way into the remuneration increase that they are able to receive. If somebody is high performing, they're not able to receive increases over and above the market movement ad infinitum, so it is capped within a bound, but it does enable progression and it does enable recognition of effort and performance through the year. So we previously had a very informal system that was heavily reliant, I guess, on the judgment of managers and individuals. We surveyed our staff last year about what they wanted from a remuneration system, and they 75% of our staff said they wanted performance recognised formally, but they believed that the current system at that time was not transparent and was open to the subjective views of a particular manager who might advocate for their staff member over and above other staff, etc. So what we've done is we've produced a fully transparent system and a structured process to ensure that performance is consistently recognised in the same way. And so that's just been rolled out, and staff have just been through the remuneration increases this year based on that new system. We've also indexed that new system to the market more strongly, I think is the way you'd describe it. So we've become a little bit more competitive as an employer. And so all of that together, we hope, will create an environment where staff are both attracted to working here and we retain them more.
So you've just gone through that review process. What's the feedback been?
We will do a staff survey a little bit later in the year where we'll get a comprehensive view of what people feel about what we've delivered. I'd say at the moment it's a little bit of a mixed bag, as you might expect. There are some staff that are generally staff are very happy that they've got the system that they asked for, which is something which is a lot more predictable and easier to understand. Having now stepped into, I guess, more actively managing performance, there are staff who have done very well in this round who are probably reasonably happy, and there are other staff whose performance has, their remuneration increases have been held back on the basis of performance, and that will result in some staff who are probably not so happy. So a little bit of a mixed bag, and we recognise that by moving to the system that there was going to be some transitional issues, and I think it will take 2 to 3 years to bed in as kind of just the way we do things around here.
Great, thanks James. Mr. Mohi.
Yeah, just like to congratulate you, on your work with the human resources, but especially with the Māori committee. Right back before my 18 years started, you were there with many of those that have now passed on. And thank you, and also apologise that we didn't realise that our last meeting for the year was in August, and not thinking that the October one was some horse race on, that there wouldn't be another meeting then, of inviting you to that meeting, because it would have been very, very good to have you there. you were just absolutely wonderful as our scribe for the Māori Committee. Admittedly, you've been replaced by a more beautiful object. However, I'm sure your expertise will be valuable to a lot of the treaty groups, and because you offer a wide perspective on many things that some of the treaty groups will hopefully latch onto. So I wish you all the best for your retirement from the council, and assure you that you will be getting your roast pork from me as usual.
Thank you.
Probably doesn't have to pay, will you?
Ai, tēnā koe. Ki te tautoko nā kōrero o oku tuakana, toro rawa ko Mike, ki tō mahi, ki te taha o te iwi Māori, ki te awhi, ki te tautoko, mātou hia, ki panga ki tēnei kaupapa. So just wanted to thank you. I suppose it's on behalf of my family, actually. So our relationship from the Paku Whānau with you goes right back to when you first started for all those years. I do have one final question for you. So with your departure, what effect will that have on the average of the term, of the average tenure of this organisation?
And age.
Yeah, drops considerably. Thank you. If I may, Mr. Chairman, just quickly respond to that. Look, I'm very humbled by the work I did earlier in my career here with the Māori Committee, and very pleased to see the position we've got to, even though it has taken a long time. But I have really enjoyed that work, and yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. So on that note, can I have Councillor Dick move the recommendation to receive the report, seconded by Mr. Paku. Do we wish to speak, Councillor?
No, other than to reiterate what has already been said, and thank you for a comprehensive report. What it does show too is the extent to which this organisation has grown, and there's no question that it needed to grow. It was very slim 10 years ago. Now it's showing some signs of middle-age spread. But the important thing, of course, to bear in mind in that is that it's now a fairly considerable consumer of ratepayer resources, and as the council moves into the future, it needs to be cognizant of that and make sure that it produces the results. But again, thank you very much.
Mr. Paku?
Yeah, just to wish you luck in the future, and on behalf of our Māori community and our organisation. Kia ora.
Councillor Graham?
Yeah, thanks for a great report, and I just want to reiterate the work that you have done here. It's been fantastic. You were a huge help to me when I first became the chair and went through quite a difficult time, and I really valued that. And I haven't been around as long as these other chaps, but you certainly, your contribution to this council has been immense, so really appreciate that. Thanks.
Comments from I will comment myself. I looked at the graph on page 36, and that demonstrates the growth in staff numbers over the decade, 157 now to 250. Sorry, Councillor, I should have called you first. That reflects really what's happened as a major adjustment in numbers. But if you reflect on also what's happened in the employment space, and particularly health and safety space during that period, major change, and Viv has carried that can for all of that period essentially solo, one-handed, and that's a tremendous tribute to his capacity and ability. I think that needs to be iterated within this, is that there's been a tremendous change. I was pleased, Viv, with your comment on page 33 in your report at paragraph 8, and I'm pleased to see that that the female staff are going to get this extra tuition and bring them up to scratch. And, on that note, I think we've got a comment from Councillor Hewitt. Sorry for not calling you earlier.
Thank you. You've heard some wonderful words from the people around the table here today, and just to, from my own perspective, I'd like to thank you for your contribution to my time in Regional Council as well, and you've been a lovely bridge between councillors and staff, and I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you. You've also gone through the whole post-Pike River health and safety reporting stage with huge skill, and I'd like to compliment you on how you've transitioned that into Regional Council as well. So you will be sadly missed around here, but best of luck with your next stages in life. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No other comments from the floor. We have moved and seconded. All those in favour of receiving the report will say aye.
Aye.
Those against will say no. That's carried. Thanks, Phil.
If I may just wish all councillors, or standing or not standing again, the very best for their future as well. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed working with you.
Committee, we've had the HR report. We now move to the Works Group annual report.
Yep, so we've just got Hamish here.
Hamish, you want to
Hamish can come up the front and find the...
Note committee, that we do have a public excluded item to follow the main meeting as well. So.
This is the report of the year, this one. I like this one. This is where we do stuff.
Welcome, Hamish. Good to see you.
Hello, Hamish.
All right. So I think you've all seen the presentation. Hamish will just take us through some of the key points, and then we're happy to answer any questions.
Can I move it on with this thing?
Ashley, should we?
Works Group's phenomenal.
All right, well, morena, everyone. I think I reported sort of back in December, but this is obviously our annual update for the 18-19 year. So you've got the paper in front of you, so I'm guessing you've had a look through that. So I'm not sure how much time I've got, but
5 minutes.
Probably not enough. But I'll just move through things fairly quickly and basically cover off financials and then some health and safety stuff and a bit of an update at the end on some projects that we've done throughout the year. That photo there's some native plantings that we've been doing through the winter down on the right bank of the Ngararoa, opposite Hohepa there by the Pūninga pump station. So that's just an example of throughout the winter the type of work that we're doing at the right time of year. So we put in about 10,000 native plants down through that area this year.
Does this work? Or? Oh, just click. Just tell me when you...
Yep.
Next.
So basically, I'll just kick off by looking at the financials. So that's just an overview of our turnover for the year. So just under 6 million, and basically split between the external work, the committed work and the uncommitted work. The large proportion being the uncommitted work, which I'll cover off how that splits in the next slide. So committed work, the portion, which is our main asset management contract with council. So basically that takes up just under 4 million of our turnover. It also includes fleet servicing work, which is about sort of 50k, which is servicing at our workshops the rest of the town fleet. The uncommitted works is basically everything that's put to us throughout the year internally from council that wasn't in our contract or wasn't contracted work. So that's 545,000. So a big chunk of that was, it's a bit of a typo, but Wairoa Playground retaining wall, which is the sheep piling work above the bridge there on the right bank of the Wairoa River. With that job, we managed the job and had Lati Civil doing the bulk of the work, but it came through our books, so it came under the uncommitted work. The rest of the work is made up by all the other departments of council, really, as the work comes in. So hydrology, all spill response, the Tūtera forest work, the nursery as well, pole deliveries and working in with the nursery makes up quite a bit of that work. And then Hardware Park was another job that we worked on throughout the year, which took up a reasonable chunk as well. So external work this year was certainly up a bit higher than previous years. We'll have a look at a trend shortly, but just under 1.5 million of external work, and basically that shows all the right-hand side of that graph. That half is all organisations that are non-profit organisations, other councils, the Napier Airport, NZTA, that one there is a job that we did for Rangitikei District Council. And I guess we're targeting those organisations for our external work. We really want to be working for other councils. Given the current market, we have been, I guess, attractive to other private clients in that we can offer good service, and hence the private drainage work here, which is quite a large sum of work, and that's because we do have a committed drainage crew who are very good at what they do, and sort of to keep those guys employed with us and provide them enough work to retain those skills, we have pushed into some of that external work as well. So we try and keep it to our forte and our core business as much as we can.
Can I ask why?
Basically, our ability to work externally, I guess there's sort of some guidelines or rules around that, and the expectation is that we will basically be doing work that is in our core business, because we don't want to be encroaching too much on the private sector and other contractors. So, it can be frowned upon a little bit that we have advantages. So we're very conscious of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So performance against budget. So the top one being our committed works, which is that contracted work. So just under 4 million and just over budget there. We sort of budgeted just a little bit lower, and that particular item is a lot easier to budget because we sort of know roughly what our contract's going to be from year to year, so it is able to be reasonably accurately budgeted. The uncommitted work, however, is a different story. Obviously, we've exceeded budget considerably, and that's because we really don't know at the time of budgeting what uncommitted work is going to come in, and I guess that's something that we need to be able to forecast a bit better going forward. And that's a planning thing, and council knowing what projects they've got coming up and what's likely to come our way, I guess. External projects are a little bit similar. Basically, it's a big unknown from year to year. We do have some fairly committed works on the external market, but it's really about where the market sits at any one time. So,
is that a result of a surge economy, is it?
Yeah, well, I think, as you know, in the Hawke's Bay region, the construction sector's just been going nuts, and I guess as a result of that, we've been helping out. We've done quite a bit of work for Higgins and Fulton Hogan and those other companies that just can't keep up with the workload. So, but who knows what next year brings? It seems to be fairly fluid. So that is our sort of trend for the last 10 years, I guess, on external income. Each of those figures is current value, so there's no inflation built in there, but you can see from 2010 up to current time, we've over doubled our external income, and that's really based on the skill set and just the current environment. So our revenue comes from several different cost centres within the business unit, so it's really showing that we are split into several different cost centres, and each of those cost centres basically has to break even. The bulk of the revenue comes from our Taradale catchment cost centre, and then chargeable plant, which is all our major plant, tractors, weed boats, etc. And each of those major plant items has to pay for itself, and we charge the job back from that cost centre. So that's how that's split.
What does Taradale catchment mean?
So the Taradale depot, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Taradale catchment staff that are there, and then we've got the Waipuck catchment staff.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
So split between those two, the costs by category, so that's really just showing that the bulk of our costs are obviously labour, so total costs just over 5 million, and made up of labour and primarily plant costs, so plant running costs, which includes labour as well. And, fuel making up sort of 3%. And the one to look at here is subcontractors. So we try and engage subcontractors as much as we can to sort of keep the local market involved in our business as well. Last year we were 20%. This year just gone we were 11%, and that's because we actually employed a specialist operator on a casual contract, and we dry hired another excavator and managed to cover a lot of the work by not engaging subcontractors. But next year, this year now, we'll be potentially increasing that back to probably about 20%, I'd say, of our expenditure will be to subcontractors. So that's just showing sort of a trend of overtime hours since 2010. And I just showed that as an idea of the increased workload and hence the overtime to sort of to cover that work. And I suppose the reason that we were well up this year is probably because of the type of work we've been doing. We did a lot of out-of-town jobs like in Wairoa and up on the Taiki Road, etc. And from that you get a lot of travel time, and to put a good day's work in, you've really got to do a 10-hour day when you're travelling a couple of hours each way. So but we try and manage that. We're obviously, I'll show you a bit later, we have increased resources slightly, and we need to make sure we're not pushing our staff too much in terms of overtime. So that's just our structure, and really wanted to show that. Just total staff of 31, and this year we employed 3 new staff in the Waipuck catchment. We had a bit of a mass exodus the year prior, and so we've replaced 3 staff, I should say. And then we've got 1 new staff member there, which is in our regional parks as a caretaker role. So that's just increasing the workload there in Tamata Park and the other regional parks. So we haven't, this year just gone, we've really effectively increased by 1, and we'll just manage that through this year and see how we go. All right, so just looking at some health and safety, just showing here that we've just achieved site-wise accreditation again to 100%. So 3 years in a row we've achieved 100% on that, and hopefully we can continue. Probably in line with what Viv was talking about, the reporting is well up there for us as well, incident reporting, and we are promoting that. Basically our system is we have what we call a pink form, and all the staff have ready access to that, and we promote that they report anything, no matter how big or small it is, in those categories there basically. So in the 18-19 year we had a total of 71 reported incidents. A lot of those being property damage and quality issues. That one there is improvement ideas, so we're also asking staff to make sure if they see something that could make things safer or improve something, put that in that form. And obviously the big one here, a total of 12 injuries throughout the year, so I just want to focus on that a little bit. So those particular injuries are shown here, that the bottom axis being a number of injuries in those categories. So we had 1 ankle sprain, 1 leg bruising, 1 knee strain, 1 eye injury, 4 back strains, and 4 wasp stings. So wasp stings come under injuries as well, but they are quite a common occurrence on the rivers. So out of those 12 injuries, 3 of them had lost time as a result of the injury. So I'll just focus on that now. The lost time injuries were the ankle sprain and the back strains. And the ankle sprain, unfortunately, the person had sort of 2 days off at the time, and then she got re-diagnosed that she'd actually torn some ligaments in her ankle, and she ended up having another 2 weeks off to sort of recover, and that meant needing 12 days off work. Now, I guess in terms of that particular incident, it was as a result of basically tripping in a hole. She was spraying up in the Wairau area and pulling the gun sprayer out, and in long grass, and she twisted her ankle in a hole that she didn't see. And our focus around these injuries is, actually, the next slide. What are we doing to minimise? So go to the next one. Yep. Get it all up. Get it all up there. So basically, the main thing is trying to ensure that the staff are understanding the code of practices around the tasks, and when they get to their site, we obviously encourage that they stand back. We call it a 5x5, so they take 5 steps back, they take 5 minutes, they look at the job, they look at the surroundings, they assess the hazards, and they think about, possible issues or hazards that could cause a problem. So it's really encouraging that happens on a regular basis on every task. We encourage warm-up exercises and promoting sort of suitable working techniques. So like scrub bar, that's an operation that if you want to fight the scrub bar, then you're most likely to injure yourself. If you go with it and work out a technique that suits your body, then it's a lot easier on your body, and it's really about awareness of the activity that you're doing. And also providing high quality personal protective equipment, so good boots that are lace up, high cut, ankle support. Those boots there are worth $300 a pair, so we don't sort of skimp on equipment that could help people. And then obviously awareness and being alert is a huge thing, and I think fatigue is probably the number one issue that causes strains and sprains if they're not fit and alert about what's happening. So it's in hot weather, it's providing things that'll help, like hydration drinks and that sort of thing. So
excellent.
Minimise manual work practices. So wherever we can, we try to utilise plant and machinery, and those are some examples. The right-hand photo being clearing weed off pump stations. We say to the staff that if you turn up to a pump station and there's more than half an hour or even 20 minutes of manual work required to remove weed, then you call a digger. So we can get diggers on all our platforms on the pump station, so it's about trying to use a digger as opposed to dragging in that manner. The other photo is looking at pole planting, alternative to driving poles manually or using a post hole borer, using a digger to dig the hole. And obviously it's a more expensive operation, but in terms of productivity, it works out pretty similar. So. And obviously managing work programs and to ensure that staff aren't on those real difficult, physically demanding tasks from day to day. We sort of try to give staff a break and share it around, I guess, amongst the troops. And promoting being fit for work, it's also what they're doing outside of work and making sure they're leading a healthy lifestyle and staying fit for the job. Training comes into it, so we have regular health and safety meetings and pre-start tailgate meetings, which should occur for every job, and competency assessments for the higher risk activities like tree felling. It's not only about the training, it's the ongoing assessment that they are confident to do the task. All right, so just on the environmental side, we're committed to reducing environmental impacts, and we realise as we are representing council, we certainly need to lead by example amongst other contractors in the whole region. So the Environmental Code of Practice is our Bible, and that's what we need to be ensuring all our staff are aware of and we're following. This year we're putting together a training package where all staff can be involved in going through this, so that's our plan for this year, is to get that completed. Other things we're sort of doing, and this is in line with the climate emergency, and I guess trying to do our bit, is to look at all sorts of options for reducing emissions, etc. So we're using eco-friendly oil where we can, or biodegradable oils. So in our weed boats, for example, all our hydraulic oils are biodegradable. In the long reach mowers, the hydraulic oils are biodegradable also. So, you know, if we have a hose burst when we're mowing beside a drain, obviously we will still contain it as quickly as possible, but it'll have less impact on the waterway. The centre one there is talking about the new excavation of waterways code of practice. You would have heard about the incident with the eels a wee while ago, so as a result of that, when excavating drains, there's a working group that's putting together a new code of practice, and that's going to involve having all staff trained in that and going through some fairly stringent processes to try and protect the fish life, I guess, a whole lot more than we have been in the past, and it's something that's going to be a fairly big focus for us.
Hamish, you had a recent success on that. You just want to tell us about that?
Oh, right. So basically we were, through MPI, as a result of that eel incident, we were under investigation, and we've just had a recent meeting to say that there won't be any prosecution. Basically, it was based on going over the quota of eel take, and obviously they've looked at it in terms of what the operation was, and clearly we went fishing for eels. But yeah, just an unfortunate situation, but yeah, the good news is that there will be no charges for that.
I was thinking of the 150 eels that we saved.
Oh, sorry, yeah, so we had a bit of a trial through our new code of practice this last week, doing some excavation in the county drain. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
Yeah. And so, look, the processes seemed to go pretty well, and yeah, I think it was probably more like 300 eels.
Oh, really?
That were saved at the dump site. So,
what did you do? Catch and carry?
Yeah, we did pretty much, and look, it's fairly full-on sort of a process, and wasn't easy. But basically, we had a big 1,000-litre pod, which we were pulling the eels out of the material as it came out of the drain into the pod, and then releasing them back into the river.
Hamish, do you feel that you've had good buy-in from the staff on the new code of practice for the mechanical excavation of waterways? I think it's lovely too.
Oh yeah, I think we definitely have, and it's just at the early stages yet. We've got to sort of get all involved. But no, I think everyone's aware that it's going forward. It's what we need to do, and there's certainly no opposition to it. I mean, it is going to slow the whole process, and it's going to be more expensive. There's no doubt about that. It involves more time, and but yeah, the staff are definitely on board with it.
Excellent.
The last two there are just talking about with purchase of plant and machinery. There's opportunities there to have higher emission control tractors, etc. So all our tractors, we've purchased 2 tractors this year, and they're both what we call Tier 4 emission ratings. So that means a higher reduction in the nitrogen oxide emissions. Tier 4 gives you an 80% reduction. Probably 50% of tractors in New Zealand are actually a Tier 2 tractor, and I think the emissions is about 20% reduction. So we're committed to ensuring we're purchasing the right equipment going forward. Minor plant, you know, there's 4-stroke technology now with scrub bars, etc. So lower emissions again. So we'll be looking at that, and providing the machines are fit for purpose, we're pretty committed to going that way as well. Just quickly there on our quality certification, so we have a total quality system qualification which has been in place for about 10 years, and we've just been accredited to that again for another 3 years. Plant machinery, so yep, we've got a 10-year capital replacement program, and so last year we purchased a new drain spraying tractor and a new spray mower tractor for down in our Waipup depot. We've also just rebuilt one of our weed boats, so that's a new weed boat to replace an old one. So that was all done in-house through our workshops. And we're also looking at getting all of our fleet up, the utes I'm talking about, to 5-star safety rating, and that's sort of in line with Council's policy as a whole. So we've got a few 3-star ones which will be getting replaced this year, so hope to upgrade everything to 5-star over the next couple of years just to ensure our staff are as safe as possible. Some sort of looking at some of the projects we've done over the year. There's the koru that was constructed in Hawea Park, so that was basically to take the outfall there from the Silver Fern Farms, which is, flows out into the Karamu stream there and into the Clive. So we basically constructed an outlet there with a koru shape, which was kind of cool. So that'll get all planted up and it'll look pretty good actually.
That is really cool, and Rick and I went and had a look at it. It's a magnet for kids, and there's kids there. Is that water coming out of the pipe able for kids? They're going to jump in there for sure.
Well, I'm told that it is all very, very pure and no issues. It's actually warm, it's slightly warm water.
It looked good and it looked clear.
Hot pool, perhaps. But yeah, I'm sure it is. Treated discharge, yeah.
So in that respect, James, because you can't stop people going, that's going to be a great place to jump in the water. Would we be part of the consent process or consent conditions would be that we're advised if it's non-swimmable or whatever?
Oh, look, absolutely. If they have an incident at Silver Fern, then they have got an obligation to advise us. Yeah, and we obviously take an action in terms of advising the public if there was an issue there. Yep.
Right, so another project we've been involved in, last year and the year before, and it's sort of continuing on for Anna and the environmental science team there. So I'm sure you're all aware of the FICO, the Australian tube worm. Anna will explain it if you're not, but I just wanted to look at how we sort of managed to remove it out of the Ahuroa estuary. So obviously it's very invasive. It's attaching itself to everything up the estuary. That there shows the a section of it there that Anna wanted to remove. So previous year we sort of dug out a channel there by using a long reach excavator from the bank. But out in here it was logistically very difficult given that the water level and the softness of the bed of the estuary. You just can't put a digger on it. Diggers don't float on water too well. So
your pictures have got one floating on.
Yeah. So we did come up with a bit of a plan, and so we created this pontoon out of a skip bin, basically, to float across the channel using a cable system. So there's just a photo of the boys pulling out the rope so we can get the cables across. You go to the next one. So yeah, and then obviously it was getting the skip bin out there, and then also being able to get an excavator out there to avoid, because previously Anna had a lot of her staff manual handling, trying to lift it into floating pontoons, and a real health and safety risk, and obviously extremely labour intensive. So if we could use an excavator, it was a whole lot better, and we managed to create these pads which the excavator moves as it goes, and really incredible how it's a 3-ton excavator, but can literally walk on water. You know, the sludge is sort of half a metre deep, but it just sat on top, and basically that tractor there is an anchor, so we had a pulley system running out to another tractor, and the excavator was digging the FICO out into the skip bin. If we go to the next one, hauling the skip bin across to the shore, here it is here, and then the excavator digging it out and into the truck. So we managed to remove that whole island about 3 days, was it? 3 or 4 days, Anna? Yeah. There is a video, I think, which go through.
There you go.
Yeah, how do we play that?
Yep.
Press play.
So this is the pontoon skip bin that's coming in. It's got about 3 cube of slop in it, FICO weed. And Doug's just out in the background there. Tide's on its way in. It's just getting pulled in now. Over to the digger.
Probably brought it in a little bit fast there.
I hope you can do commentary with the Rugby World Cup.
Come around your place.
Basically, loaded into the truck and then taken down to an area where it's contained, where we could safely dump it, and then it basically just rots down, dries out down to nothing. So there's no risk of it getting into any other waterway.
So while the digger is unloading the skip bin, Doug's out there digging more FICO, just getting it ready for the next bin load.
I'll just show that. So the tractor was out in the...
That is the tractor out there that pulls the bin in, so we've got a synthetic winch rope.
So we had 600 metres of cable, which was basically on a pulley
from the
system,
tractor
pulling
to
the
skip bin
backwards and forwards across the channel.
And that's
So it seemed to work okay. Look, it was
probably that thing way around.
process, but it...
This is going to be an annual topic. When the last time it was done?
This looks like guys are having fun out there, I reckon.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, a whole lot better than guys in there trying to dig it out.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right, so the last one here, just to talk about was this job for Rangitikei District Council, which was, this was a tendered job which we tendered on and won the contract to do for them. Basically on the, just over from the Gentilani on the Taipi Road, a 6 metre diameter Armco culvert that was rotten in the bottom, and that's pretty standard for a lot of the galvanised steel Armco culverts in the region. There's, I'd say, hundreds of those that need to be either replaced or, in this instance, they wanted us to concrete line the bottom of it. So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, so the logistics, the difficulties with this job was we had to dewater the stream, and it's a 300 litre a second mountain stream that's got pretty high velocities.
I've heard the stream.
Basically, the options were to either over pump or put a diversion in, and given the culvert size, the road there, to dig through and put a permanent diversion was logistically too difficult. So we basically brought down 3 large capacity pumps from Auckland and cofferdammed and utilised fish traps to ensure that we weren't affecting the fish life, and we did it at the time of year that suited in terms of spawning, etc. And we had to dewater it basically to give us enough time to construct the concrete lining, and then also allow a minimum of 3 days of curing of the concrete before we let the water back through. So there's setting all the pumps up and running the pump through. Once we dewatered it, we could see clearly the damage within the culvert, and you can see there the type of corrosion that we were dealing with. A lot of that had to be cut out and then thoroughly cleaned, and if we go to the next one, and then we had to reinforce all the base to pour the reinforced concrete. So it was setting up reinforcing steel and welding it to the tops of the sides of the culvert, and also doing all the abutments and things in the front. So the concrete itself was a 40 MPa fibre reinforced, which is a pretty hefty brew, and the only way of getting that in there really is to use shotcrete, which is pumping it through a pump and blowing it like that. So that's a specialist contractor we engaged to do that. As part of lining it with the concrete, we also had to allow for fish refuge in the base. So initially they'd proposed using rock placed into the concrete itself, which aesthetically may have looked better but certainly wouldn't have the robustness. So we promoted that we actually built the accumulated rocks into the concrete slab itself, and you can see that there to create that fish refuge in the bottom. So it took us 1 day to basically pour the concrete, and then we had to leave it dewatered for 3 days before letting the water through. So, and then also creating some rock riprap at the outlet there. And then that was the finished product. And yeah, the council were very happy with the result, and the DOC were also involved because it was actually on Department of Conservation land, and it's their waterway, so they were heavily involved with ensuring that it was looking after the environment and doing things as we had to. So yeah, they were happy, and we made a bit of money out of it. So yeah, that's really it.
Do you think about setting that up to home and garden and sort of like a water feature? I thought it was so artistically good to fish all the rest of it, sort of in home and garden. You know, the boys. Great.
Well, many thanks, Hamish. One or two questions, or possibly just the one.
Thanks, Hamish. That was pretty sensational. Really. I knew Rick would love every minute of that.
I do.
Boys' work. I'm quite interested, and so we run this as a business unit with its own accounts and balance sheet. I'd quite like to see that. Not so much the balance sheet, but certainly, we've got a whole lot of stuff, extra stuff, that politically correct stuff that we're having to do, and probably rightly so, and we are sort of leading edge on that, driven by you, which is great, but there is substantial cost, and is that affecting our business? So I don't have to answer that now, but I'd like to see it, even over the years, because if you had that phenomenal growth in outside work, 200%, over 200%, so is that contributing to better profits despite the fact that we're having...
Yes, well, in terms of the return from that private work, that was quite good this year, but obviously don't want to present it because it's commercially sensitive in how we price those jobs, but we can provide the information.
If you could, I'd like to see that, because this has been a incredibly... And are we still getting 10% of the of our equity in there? That's what we used to get.
We've reduced the rate that we're borrowing, lending
was a little
to the
bit
management.
average.
But in terms of the dividend back to council, it exceeded the budget amount this year by...
Okay.
600,000.
You want us to spend it now?
No, I don't want to spend it. I just want to know this is a fantastically profitable business and a fantastic business overall.
Yeah, so certainly the in-house work is done at cost. So any over recovery on the planned in-house work is returned, but certainly the private work, any profit there is returned through a dividend back to council.
Councillor Hewitt.
Thanks, Hamish. I really enjoyed that, the change from the last presentation that you came to us, and what you're reporting now is quite noticeable. Your CapEx is well in place. Your health and safety, I think, is quite a step up. I'm interested in your PCBU health and safety obligations, and looking for some reassurance that you're on top of that as you're increasing your contractor engagement over the next financial year. Have you got a comment on that?
If you talk in terms of, because one of the things we really have to consider is the fact that we're operating in private property a lot as well, and in amongst other businesses, and that's something that we're very conscious of, and it is a difficult area because the type of work we do, we're passing through several properties in a day, and for us to sort of able to engage with them every time we go on the property, it's a bit of an issue. So we're managing that by making sure we're contacting them, letting them know, and providing them access to our programs, etc., so that all parties involved know when we're doing what activities.
Contractors though, or that your subbies that you're pulling on?
In terms of our subcontractors, we've got a pretty stringent process in place for approved subcontractors. So all our subcontractors, or in fact all contractors that work for council, have to be site-wise accredited, up to 75% site-wise green, and we've got our own system in place that we ensure that the contractors we're using are certainly capable of the job, and they've got the health and safety things in place. But yeah, look, all our health and safety systems flow through into our subcontractors, I guess is the main point there.
Yeah, well done, that's great.
Mr. Wilson?
Just the works group's always been there to deliver outcomes that we can't really contract out. I mean, expertise with the weed boats as an example, etc. And I mean, this year, well, round figures $800,000 profit. I'm just wondering whether one of the looming challenges the region faces is getting expertise and willing folk to plant trees. I'm talking native riparian type stuff. I mean, we have a great aspiration to do a whole lot of stuff, but frankly, you can't find anyone to do it. And I'm just wondering whether, as part of an ongoing discussion, whether we do find a way to, either mechanise or certainly provide warm bodies to do some of this work on a more general scale. I mean, there's planting days all around the place every weekend now, but it's not going to keep up. It isn't going to hope. So I just wondered whether, probably to you, through you, Chair, to Mr. Dolly, whether we could put some thought into that, perhaps.
Yeah, look, we certainly can, and I've already discussed it with Hamish. One of the challenges with the planting work is it's very seasonal. There's quite a short window that we would traditionally plant. And part of the challenge for Hamish is if we take more resource on to do more planting, what is the work we do with the crew over the rest of the year? So it's a bit of a balancing act in terms of us doing more planting, but certainly, yeah, take it on board. It's a big issue that we can be.
Thank you for that. I think we've got to move it here. Councillor Barker.
I'll move the reception of the report.
Right, we've got a seconder. That's Councillor Graham. You've received the recommendation. You want to speak? Either?
Bruce, I just want to say this is one of the highlights of the year for me. I like practical things. I'm a bloke. I'm an unreconstructed bloke. I like to see things done. You guys do things, and I think you do it extremely well. I'm really impressed with the quality of your report. The fact that you have attended seriously all the health and safety issues, supply all the staff with $300 boots, lace-up boots like you do. You haven't done this on the cheap, and I commend you for that. The 5 and 5, I must try that in my life too. I'm sure it'll work for me, but anyway. Well, it might change my lifestyle dramatically. I'm not sure I can cope with that, but I think you do the right thing. And I like the fact that you're entrepreneurial. I like the fact that you use contractors and your own staff as a sort of counterbalance all the time, that you're constantly managing things. And I think the Works Group is a very dynamic and potent tool in the toolbox for this council. And I want to thank you and your staff for all the good work you've done over the years. It's great.
Right, thank you.
Any other comment?
I just want to say I 100% agree with him. With Councillor Barker, I mean, you guys are fantastic, and I'm just sure he wants a pair of those boots.
Thanks, Sam. You do get a good discount, so.
Any other comments from anyone? Look, we've got the report. Recommendations that receive it. All those in favour of receiving the report will say aye. Those against will say no. We'll carry it. Thank you very much, Hamish. We'll move quickly to. We're running behind scheduled folks. We need to be out of here by lunchtime. But Drew, thank you. Overview of where you're heading and
5 and 5.
take from there.
Escape. Is yours up there already?
Yeah, it should be. Is that? Yep.
We didn't get the presentation for the report again.
Aware of that.
I just want to say this is the non-report.
Correct.
I'll move.
Sorry, Councillor, you were saying that which report are you referring to?
I didn't receive a comms report.
These notes, no.
But we did last time, and we were assured that it would not be this case again.
I'll speak to that as soon as I open this.
I don't know how you can.
It's frozen.
No, it's moving now, it's moving now.
You don't expect things are on the table.
Yeah, just enable that.
I think it's a great attribute to the communications team.
I do apologise up front that you're not looking at a completed paper. I did submit more than you received, but I do intend to cover off the points that I intended to make in the paper and the presentation, which I've got up on the screen there.
Sorry, Drew, you're just saying that you did submit a presentation that just didn't go out in the pack?
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't submit a presentation to go alongside the paper, but I have got a presentation to put forward today.
Just a matter of order, can I say we get sent papers to read before we turn up here. In most of the number of organisations I've been for, there is no speaking to a paper because everybody's expected to have read it. You go straight to the detail of it. And I think it's just a bad process to have material come before this council, but the council's not had the opportunity to read it before it comes here. I just make that very clear. So it's not on the table, we shouldn't be discussing it. I'm not saying this to you directly, though you're here, but this is a matter for the executive team to be clear. It's just not process.
James, we had this discussion last time with the comms team not just giving us a report and giving us and speaking to it, and it's just lazy. It's not a one-off.
Concerns are noted. Yep.
Can we receive the report?
Where we go, Drew?
Thank you. All right. So I just wanted to cover off on some of the deliverables that the team have worked through this year, and also just some of the principles that the Marcoms team are working through too. I just want to make a note on Hamish's presentation previously that we have got one of the team working on daylighting some of those cracker stories that the works group do, the projects they work on, and the output that they have through the river assets and operations team. So. Some of this you will certainly be well aware of. We do have a strong environmental education program, and it's supported by the part-time EnviroSchools facilitators in CHB and Wairoa, and the resource that we have for Napier and Hastings. We are working more and more closely with the regional council teams inside the regional council, such as the Integrated Catchment Management Group, and on programs that include the shared water conservation campaign that happens annually with Napier and Hastings councils, and the recent stormwater campaign that's taken place in partnership with Napier City Council. The standard program of delivery that one of the team leads is a Drain Detectives module, which is incredibly well received through schools right across the region. And there are some areas where the program relies on or is supported by external funding, such as with the Central Hawke's Bay District Council, where that enables us to reach more schools in some areas. And we've got a direct relationship with schools, Kura, early childhood education centres, and of course with the EIT. So that's a great channel for us to extend our arms and legs right out through the community of Hawke's Bay.
Sorry, I'm a little bit confused. Is the communications team responsible for EnviroSchools, our EnviroSchools program?
Correct.
Okay, that's
yeah.
cool.
Through Sally Chandler in my team. Yeah. All right. So. Yeah, I'm not going to speak directly to the points that are up on the board. I'll leave them there for you to, and I'll just make some other comments around them as well. So,
sorry, Drew, in terms of EnviroSchools, childcare centres included as part of that program, or can they be included as part of that program, or is it simply kindergartens? And
it's kindergartens because they operate under a collective. So there's the Hiratonga Kindergarten Association, and there's the Ahuriri or the Napier Kindergarten Association. And through that consistent approach that those kindergarten associations take, that enables us to deliver a really standardised product of engagement with them. With the independent childcare centres, and there are a number of them, it's a little, be quite a lot harder for us to have a consistent rollout of through those. The kindergarten associations that we work with, they actually undertake training with us so that they can then lead the program further away from just the likes of Sally or the EnviroSchools facilitators having to be on call every time we do a piece of that focused work.
So at the moment you're focusing on getting all the kindergartens on board, and then you may look at moving to childcare centres after that?
Depending on resources, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So there's a substantial ongoing focus, a lot of it in the background, on digital support, and that improves access to information, whether on desktops or increasingly on mobile devices. And so there's been a lot of work this year through the team to deliver updated elections portal of information. A lot of focus on the environmental data that we deliver in the background to make that much cleaner and more helpful to the community to interact with. So for example, we now have a very detailed delivery of information, which is a little slow, and I might abandon it. On our website, where you can navigate through right across the different elements that we focus on. You can navigate either through the different area of interest that you have, right through to climate, or you can look at a specific site based on a table, based on a map that covers right across the region. When you look at the map, you can see whether the state is steady, whether it's trending up or down in terms of volume. That gives you very quick serve up of information. And then you can also look in terms of charts to get an overview of a specific site, which you can then interrogate and ask it for more information. So when we talk to media and they ask us queries about specific volumes of flow or state in our environmental data, we can send them to this information, and it can actually, or we can interrogate it ourselves, and that can give them a very quick and clear picture of specific numbers when you actually are wanting to interrogate environmental data. So we're finding that that's incredibly useful. We've been able to use that to answer media queries very quickly, and also the public themselves are using this information more and more frequently to enable them to make decisions about how they use resources. So in other areas that have been that have had substantial amount of work on the rates area, the rate invoices were just being distributed out this week, and of course the people who receive their rates by email will have actually already received their rates invoices last night through the email channel. So that's going to get a lot of eyeballs in the next short period.
Just a question on that environmental data and the river flows. Do the rivers where we have minimum flows set, do we put a line across saying this is the minimum flow and it's either above or, so that you can tell whether it's above or below?
So the trigger levels are typically on those, yes, you can see those. Yep.
See those as a trend line, yes. So plenty of work in the Sustainables Home services area. There's a hub there now. We've put a lot of effort into updating and refreshing the Tuki Tuki pages, given the focus on the Tuki Tuki plan. And of course, we're currently consulting on the outstanding water bodies. So there's been each one of those specific areas of web content requires quite a lot of oversight to make sure that they're fit for purpose, and that those are given a lot of attention through the Marcoms team and equally through the project champions that drive each of those areas of work. The other comment there is social media is a very active space, as you'll be well aware. Facebook likes have increased up some 400 odd since March this year. So it's a very active space. It's still in the bigger context of overall media or overall public activity. Quite a small space, but it does get a lot of eyeballs, and there's often very strong and emotive engagement in that space. So there's a marked increase this year in views to the public webcast council and committee meetings, noting that the council, the Environment and Services, i.e. the Corporate and Strategic, the Regional Planning Committee and the Drinking Water Committee are all live webcast, recorded and then uploaded to YouTube. So they exist as public records for the public to either look at as they occur or look at retrospectively at a time which is convenient to them.
Drew, before you leave the online stuff, do you
About a month ago, I was at a meeting at Havelock North Community Center with a couple hundred people there, 150 people there, and the charge was made that we have no information online from the regional council. And it was, you know, a dumb comment, and I took it on. But do you have a budget to push this stuff out? I mean, do you have you obviously do have stats on year-to-year growth in visitor views, visitors, page views, etc. So we have all of this. There's quite a bit of information, in fact, on the website, but it sits there, and my impression is that we don't do very much to. We don't put any money behind pushing it out the door, so to speak. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's probably that's a fair comment. I think we don't do a lot to specifically push hbrc.gov.nz, although it is embedded largely within all of the communications efforts that we do. And when we push a media release up to social media, the release links back. When we do any post, there's generally a link back to the website, but we haven't specifically individually pushed the website. My intent is I'm just waiting on a, what I think is a pretty sizable piece of content to come online, which is a publications library, which we've been working on for quite some time, and it's been a little more complicated than I had thought it was going to be. But that publications library will be live within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then that will give me a platform to want to push some more awareness of the website. And what functionality, what actually is on offer in the website, including access to all of the reports that predominantly the Regional Council has published over the last sort of 10 years or 10 years or more.
Drew, you do have the stats on what the annual views or hits
Absolutely,
on the website are, which are about how many?
Well, I think each month there's about 45,000.
So I thought we read that in the report.
Right.
Each month there's about 45,000 unique viewers that come to the website. So yeah,
considerable.
Yeah, it's absolutely a considerable number.
And to Tom, if we're going to go and do what Tom says, push out the door, we are promoting. And I think that's a significant policy decision to make about that, whether we want to start clogging up people's electronic mail traffic with advertising. Before we do that, I'd like to have a discussion. So I'm not entirely in favour of that. Just on the basis of some person says she can't, or he says he can't find it on the website and they have a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, and there is an ongoing program of improvement for the digital service that we offer, and we also are working very closely with a shared service team across all 5 councils. We've got a common, I won't say common backbone, but an overall framework, and we work with Napier City Council through a web host service arrangement, and that team is looking to see how we can better work across all 5 councils to deliver a better service for the Hawke's Bay community, and that shared service arrangement's been in place now for the last sort of 2 to 3 years, and it's continuously looking at ways to improve what we do, how we do it.
Have you got many? How many?
Sorry, I've got a few more.
Communications manager.
Just wanting to speak to really the principle for the Marcoms team and how the Marcoms team works with the organisation is really one of the principle of transparency. And quite a number of you will be familiar with, perhaps, or may not have seen the tweet from Anusha Bradley, which was talking about interaction with Napier City Council, but her comment, if you couldn't read it, was, in contrast, Hawke's Bay Regional Council very nearly always puts someone up, or tries very hard to, much more open and honest about its processes and decisions, and happy to let their experts talk freely. And I think that speaks volumes just for the commitment of this council to be transparent with the community, to speak and to speak promptly to the media, and to have an open public voice within the region. Also playing to our reputation, the Napier Port IPO, I think following the conclusion of the Ruatana fireworks in 2016 and equally the Havelock North water crisis in 2017, we've come to a much stronger period of positive interaction with the regional community. And above all, whether our activities are widely supported by the community or criticised, that public transparency and open dialogue helps us to manage our reputation and identity. And it's also borne out through that community awareness of the Regional Council's environmental role, which was sat at 52% in 2015, but it was then about 62% in 2017, and it's now sitting at 76.5%. So that's almost a 25% increase over the last 4 years. We've been through a brand refresh this year with a focus really on the logo, the language and the look of the Regional Council's communications. I'm also working to develop a cultural context to sit sort of behind and as a complementary part of this brand refresh. And I've been working closely with Peri on that, as well as a local artist, Sandy Adset, who is Pahuera and Kahungunu, and that work will come to this table fairly soon.
I'll just make the observation, as I have to the Chief Executive, I think the brand refresh where the largest, most easily read words are Hawke's Bay rather than Regional Council, I think is simply round the wrong way. I know where I live. What I want to know is whose vehicle it is when you see it in distance. I just don't understand this. I just think we've got... Why is Hawke's Bay the most important message to put out? I thought the Regional Council, who we are, is the most important. Misses the point entirely for me.
Yeah, put it in a
Leave me with that. Move on.
So some of the work of the team this year has been the annual plan, this year's annual plan, which obviously is a good summary of what we are doing as a council, using plain and non-technical language and graphics. Further to that, the focus on the elections campaign this year has been, and the visuals that have been associated with the work we've done has been about putting people at the centre of our work. And that elections campaign work has been a shared approach with all 4 territorial councils as well as the Hawke's Bay District Health Board. We've also recently been able to deliver, working right across council, the pre-election report, which was the comprehensive overview of the region's key issues, the role of the council and the activities that are underway to address them. We've been working closely with the Integrated Catchment Management team on some further communications around the Tuki Tuki Catchment Plan, and also on the Plant to Protect program, which speaks to the erosion control scheme. And all of these are using that consistent delivery of the brand, which has been reinvigorated this year. This is a very quick video. But I'll go past it.
Yeah, okay, good.
All right.
Thanks.
Just out now, obviously, is the rates newsletter and the rates pack, which is being delivered to all ratepayers across the region via post and email.
Sorry about that. Can we not send it out?
Sorry?
Can we not send it out?
Oh, apologies. It's out. Also, my team coordinates, brochures, web, social. We use bus backs and billboards from time to time, such as this one of the Tuki Tuki plan, which was recently installed at Oatani and at Waipokoro. And there's this one, which is very shortly to be installed at the Pakawhai roundabout by Hawea Historical Park. And that billboard frame there will enable us to then update the progress on the development of that park as it develops over the next year. And it's a very high-profile site, obviously. Through the web, we've currently got it under consultation, the Outstanding Water Bodies piece of work, which is open until February 2020. And we're through the tools that we've got, we're just trying to make those that content as engaging as it can be, using visual tools that sort of open it up so that it's not just a page of dialogue, obviously. We're just releasing the State of the Environment Summary Report, and we'll shortly start work on a video communications plan for the main technical reports that will sit behind it, and those reports will start to be released towards the end of this year. And then the last slide I've got is really just on the work plan in front of the team, and it's been a project-based sort of a comms approach for some time. This is the work plan to the year end. You can see there's a strong focus on elections currently. In October, we intend to put out a 2-page feature in newspapers and community papers across the region on land and water to bring the conversation up to a more strategic level. We're also looking at a celebration of the 30 years of the Regional Council in November, which regional councils are included in that celebration, and there'll be more information on that very shortly. We're working closely with an external organisation on a climate change event on the 25th of November, and again more information will be coming out to you shortly about that. And we have our inaugural sponsorship of the Hawke's Bay Forestry Awards on the 29th of November, which is a great opportunity for the Regional Council to be at the front of that piece of work. So it gives you a sense of the work that's coming through. And then just reflecting on Desiree's comments about the annual report earlier on, we are moving more towards outcome reporting, and I think that shift towards outcome reporting will enable us to, through the Project Management Office and the organisational reporting team, enable us to tell a story which is more based on the outcomes that we're moving towards and the numbers that we have actually to tell the story of moving towards those outcomes. And so that's an evolving space, and that's what I'm really excited about us moving towards being in. And yeah, we'll have more report cards, more scorecards, and those numbers and those outcomes will be more regularly reflected in the communications that we deliver on behalf of the council.
Thank you, Drew.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Any questions from folk on this big swath of work, a lot of work involved?
Just a comment.
Mr.
Yeah, just at the Tamatea meeting 10 days ago, we've got a swag of young ones coming onto the committee, and there was some very positive remarks from them about the communications that come from the council compared to a few years ago. So I'd just like to you to be mindful of that. Very happy about all the stuff that they can access.
I'll move. Councillor Graham has moved. Seconder, Councillor Bevan. Any comment from?
Bit of a comment. Drew, I think all in all, you and your team do a pretty good job. You know, I think we have lifted our profile, not just around the port, but around a whole lot of stuff. I get really good comments in the community, and you can do good stuff, but unless you tell people you're doing good stuff, like parks and riparian planting and all the other stuff we're doing, they'll never know. And I think you do on or get it out to the community pretty well. I have to disagree with my colleague, Councillor Barker. I actually like the logo. I think we get ownership of the word Hawke's Bay. And I love that, the fact that we're the only ones that cover the whole Ruhi, and we have ownership of that brand, and I've got used to the funny little things on top, but I think we're out there, and I'd hate to, if we have a brand and that's it, I'd hate us to dilute it by changing around. I know there was a bit of a thought on that, but a brand's a brand, and we keep the same brand, whatever it is, but I'm comfortable with it the way it is. Well done, anyway.
Agreed.
Councillor Bevan.
Thanks, Drew. I don't feel deprived because I didn't read your report in advance.
Well said, Peter.
Any other comment? Councillor Hewitt.
James, this is probably more for you because I do keep saying it, but there is a huge opportunity to talk to the people of Central Hawke's Bay through our little weekly newspaper, Central Hawke's Bay Mail, and we are missing that opportunity sorely by not telling our story there. It could be adding a lot of value. There's a lot of angst in the community, particularly with the resource consent requirements under the plan change, and I would strongly urge you to be passing that back through to the team to please start looking at that as a medium.
Councillor Barker.
Thank you. I tend to vote against the resolution. Be very clear about this. I do so for a number of reasons. Firstly, every other staff member turns up here as presenters with a report. I know it's honest to write a report. It's a tough job to do and so on, and I get that. But we just had a really good, strong report from the parks people, the works people before, where the person in charge had done a lot of effort into writing a report and came along and told us informatively what he'd done and has it in the record. Now, you haven't done that. There's no report for us to read in advance and no report for us to put on the record. And I tried to say to you, I think that, in my view, I disagree with Rex on this, in my view, that shows a lack of respect for this council. You are here to report to this council, and the manner and means in which you report to this council is very clear. Now, if there was something happened that you couldn't get it done, no problem. If you were hurt in the hospital for 2 weeks, whatever, family tragedy, I'd excuse all of that. But I think as a standard rule, staff who report to here are to send us a report so we can read in advance and be prepared. For you to turn up here and then give us a report on the time is, in my view, a little bit like ambush. My view is very old-fashioned. If it ain't on the table, it isn't to be discussed. I made that clear on another report when we had a discussion about something, and the chief executive chided me that the stats showed something quite different. To which I responded, it isn't in the report. If it's not in the report, it's not discussable. You can't do that. So I just want to say to you,
Chairman, point of order.
I'm about to go too, Chair. This is unfair. The only one who can castigate is that guy.
Intervene here. I'll accept Councillor Dick's point of order.
Point of order is that...
And we'll move on to any other speakers.
Sorry, could I...
Courtesy
I
in
did
dealing...
submit-
Hang on. Courtesy in dealing with staff is paramount.
Yeah.
If you've got a problem with staff performance, see the chief executive.
okay, I withdraw and apologise. Should do, but I want to be very clear, I'm voting against it.
I think we'll leave it at that, and we've got the point of receiving the report. It's been moved and seconded. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say, Drew, that I recall when I first came on council, commenting about the social media presence of the regional council. I thought it was pretty poor at the time. It's gone. It's out of this world now. I'm really liking the Weed of the Week. I think that's been really well received by the public and really quite informative, because a lot of people are learning a lot of stuff from that, and I think that's really important.
Councillor Melford.
Yeah, I don't know the circumstances of why we've gotten no reports, a verbal report or whatever, so I can't really comment on that. What I did see is a good reminder that there is a lot of what I would call scut work that goes into delivering the information that the organization does produce for a wide variety of constituencies, some of whom want access to quite technical real-time information, others of whom, mostly councillors, want one-page headliners they can read and digest, because that's about all they have the appetite for. So there's a wide spectrum in that mix, and I think the report that we did get indicates that's the case. It's sort of like, before I came here, I spent probably 3 years every week taking a train to New York City and back on a trip that lasted about 2 hours and a half, whereas in Europe that trip would last an hour. And so it was like sort of complaining about the length of the trip and complaining to the conductor was sort of missed the point. The responsibility for what level of effort we make and the quality of it, it doesn't reside in one individual. It resides in the team responsible for it and the priority it's given by the managers involved. And so if there is a serious strategic shortcoming in the communications program, that's a wider issue for discussion. So with that, I'm happy with the verbal report. I would like to have seen it in advance. I would not have seen the videos and what have you, because they're hard to see on paper. But I think there's an enormous volume out there, and I did bridle at the meeting that I was at when someone, basically said, in response to someone who was there specifically to criticize regional councils and their management of water issues, that someone would say to a public audience that we had no relevant information on our website. It was impossible to find anything. The staff was not transparent. You saw the Radio New Zealand response there. I put that online on my on my Facebook page and got 1,500 views of it. So when I say we need to push things out, I'm not saying blanket the universe, but we do need a strategic plan. It doesn't, just having it sit there doesn't get the job done. There are people who are active users who need the information to run their farms or do other things, but there are a hell of a lot of other people who, when you door knock, have no clue as to what council does what. And that's part of what a communications plan, it seems to me, long-term has to achieve. And so anyway, I'm not going to get hyper-reactive about what we got in advance or didn't get in advance. I'd like to get things in advance too. But I think this report that we received verbally did the job it needed to do on the day. Thanks.
I'll second that. That's a great report.
All right, we've got a report in front of us. Mover and seconded. Those in favour of receiving the report will say aye.
Aye.
Those again will say no. That's carried. Thank you, Drew. We've really pushed for time, and it's a bit of a shame. The next item is the minor item, Matariki. It is a minor item and for noting, so not a big discussion.
It's not the first time he's lied to us.
Not a discussion, it's just Toro's going to have his
Toro,
So I acknowledge that the regional council is...
excuse me, gentlemen.
Yeah, I acknowledge that the regional council has 7 high overarching actions in terms of the Matariki. And one of them is the port. And you know, share offerings to people, which I think is a good thing. However, you know, the earning ratios of people in Hawke's Bay is not very high when I talk about families, and that's what the Matariki refresh is about, trying to raise the income levels of families. I would like to ask, how are we going to address the other issues, because 50% of the population in Hawke's Bay earn under $20,000, the other 50 earn over. So we've got big lines of people out there every day getting food. We've got a 37% increase in suicides. We've got 200% increase in people not having homes. So the only people who benefit from that is the owners of the motels. So, I mean, I could go on forever and a day, but I just want to know where do we sit in this? In terms of the Matariki strategy, Hawke's Bay Regional Council was party to it. And
well, thank you, Mr. Walker. I appreciate your point. I wonder whether we could have as a bring-up item for the next meeting in terms of a report on Matariki and its social response. I would comment that just like the traffic and motor vehicle crashes, there are only limited things that this council is responsible for and can achieve. That was the only item. Sorry, you were.
I know, we were just wondering with the new triennium coming, when you would like it brought up.
Well, I think at the next corporate and strategic meeting.
Cool.
Now, we're up to the point of needing to go into public excluded to consider recommendations from the...
I'll move.
You moved, Councillor. Seconded, Councillor Wilson. Those in favour of moving to excluded, public excluded, will say aye. Those against will say no. That's carried. We're now in public excluded.